Hi, I'm Jay, and today we're going to take a quick look at my tying space. Stay tuned. So over the last few years, I've had guys asking about my tying space. I even belong to a couple Facebook groups, and you see on Instagram and so forth, guys that you post your fly tying space. I find it interesting. I like looking at what other people have as a setup, but it's also interesting to me how a tyer interprets, or how a tyer evolves and how their needs and their space, what dictates what, I guess. I don't know, what's the interesting thing to you when you're looking at other people's space? So I just got a single camera here today. I really am not going to edit anything out. Maybe just the I can't just swing my microphone when I turn the camera around, so maybe as I turn the camera I'll physically change the position of the microphone. I might cut that part out, but we'll take a little bit of a look at my space. You'll notice that there is the video production stuff, so the cameras and the computer and whatnot. Nothing with my space is any different that if you just took that stuff out. Just over the years I've added the lighting and whatnot, but everything else is in the position that it's supposed to be in. So let's flip the camera around and we'll take a quick look. Just quick video. So if I take a step back, I'm fortunate where I have two benches set up. Both of these benches are old IBM workbenches. I'm not exactly sure where they came from, what lab or what work area. This plain one, which is my jig tying desk, was my father's tying desk for as long as I can remember. And it's a very plain workbench, no drawers or anything on the bottom half, and we did add just the wood sides with a shelf across the back. We'll get a little bit closer. We'll zoom in on that in just a brief moment. We'll take a step back and look at the other desk. I picked this desk up close to 20 years now. We were at our first house, my wife and I, and our kids were young. So I picked this up at a garage sale in Endicott, walking distance from the original IBM plant, where it all started here in Endicott, New York. And the bench is identical to my father's with the exception of the 8 drawers, 4 on each side. And as I've mentioned in the past, and this is the main reason why, I prefer C-clamp vices and a Draftsman style chair that I can raise and lower to match my work area. So this bench on the right is my primarily fly tying. Here's my Renzetti presentation 3000 vise. I love this vise. I prefer a vise with a jaw mechanism that is, you just turn it and it opens and closes the vise jaws like so, as opposed to the cam style vise. But the Renzetti, I've had this vise for many years. Love it. Do have a little bit of a library. So many of the books that we talk about, Helen Shaw and Slaymaker and Cross and all the different authors that I've talked about. So just years and years of tying books, books on fishing in general, books on the Catskills, some quite old, because I do enjoy looking at the evolution of tying and fishing, reading about some of the stuff back in the 30s and 40s and how it relates to how we're fishing now. A few decorations, the Beaverkill map on my wall, but then just a some old vise on display, some old Cortland 333 and old fishing doodads. The Wulff ice I still do use. And then here's an interesting thing, and I hope I get it in this. I can't see the back of the camera now, but that is my dad was a sales rep for Universal Vice, and he had this in his collection. He said it was a prototype, but it has, I've talked about this before. As you can see, it has the extra stop on it, so the vice jaws can be locked at the quarter turn. And if I can reach up here, it's pretty far. This carefully. Let's see if I can get a nice close-up picture of this. This is a Lee Wulff fly. Let's see if I can get it in different light. But that is a fly tied by Lee Wulff. I actually contacted, I believe it was an email with one of the stepsons. I don't have the name, though I could probably dig out that email, where I sent pictures. I know my dad did a lot of business in the Catskills because he did process fur and feathers, mostly bucktails, but I know Dad was also involved with processing and dyeing feathers. And he spoke about Lee, I remember, as a kid. But I sent photos to the company. And let me switch the microphone here briefly, quickly. So I sent, just a quick story, I did send photos, a description, and had a conversation back and forth, and they were pretty darn sure that that was actually a fly from Lee, more than likely from almost like a prototype, because part of it was unfinished, and it was part of the line. I think it was called Flies of the Future. So it has a plastic body, which is pretty interesting, and from what I understand, they would dip first they would mold the body onto the hook, dip that in a solution, probably like a strong thinner, some type of thinner, lacquer thinner, or something even a little stronger. And as that plastic was still melted, partially melted, wrap the hackle feathers into it, so it'd be all one piece. They're really kind of interesting. I think you can really find a lot of information on the larger streamer-sized flies. But if you go to the Catskill Fly Fishing Museum, you'll actually see some of those on the desk that was preserved after Lee passed. And they just have his workbench out, and you can see some of those unfinished dry flies. So dry flies of the future, but really neat. I kind of like. I found that in Dad's. You know, he just had closets full of boxes and boxes of stuff, but I really like that and kind of like displaying that. So real quick, there's my workbench. So for my flies, so each of these drawers has all sorts of materials, but you know, everything from you know, just drawers full of dry fly hooks, streamer hooks, things like tinsel and wire and whatnot that I need for streamers. So there's a streamer drawer, spinners drawers, extra tools and supplies, extra vise, jaws and bits and screws, nuts and bolts. I do keep my dry fly hooks kind of out and ready to go on each of these racks. Some fancier than others. You know, there's some of Daddy's dry fly hooks. What else do I have? I know I have some. Where are they at? Partridge, umpwa, and partridge hooks I really like. Those are some streamer hooks. So kind of interesting. Books that I always have on my desk. I don't have to look at them a whole lot now, but I like to keep them on my tying desks. Just books on practical fishing knots. And then Stewart's hook book is great to help identify hooks, and I have a lot of handwritten notes in there. So a newer hook that's come out in the last 20 years, let's say, if it's very similar to a mustad, I'll put the note in the mustad section for that, just in case I need to you know, can't get the original because Mustad's been messing around with their hook line, but I need something that's comparable. My newest travel vise, my HMH vise, love this thing. There's a card box here which is really interesting. I have an old recipe card box. When I tie a fly, even though I have books and books and books, you know, on fly patterns, when I'm tying flies for myself, and here's one of my clipboards on what needs to be done, but as an example, this is a box that I carry, and I have it on my table because I'm filling it. This is an inventory box that I'll take to the fly shops. So right now I have to fill the majority of this box, but you can see that I recently tied size 14s, Gray Wolves. I recently tied size 12s mahogany duns, but I have to do the other sizes. Here's some olives, but yeah, the majority of this is empty, but it's on my desk because I'm actively filling that, and kind of, like I said, just following my clipboard. And out of the both desks, this one probably stays the most in order. You know, different cements, dubbing, and that's some of the Angora and some of the fancier dubbing that I keep there. And like we've seen in other videos, I have bags and bags of dubbing of just the generic basic stuff. That wooden box back behind Coach there has some neat old flies in it, and I haven't been able to identify them. There might be a couple Thunder Creeks in there that are actually original, again from my dad. So I try not to upset that box too much until I can identify what's what. Of course, I watch YouTube videos while I'm tying, and I don't you know, if there's tools on here that I don't touch, they come off my table. Same with lacquers, head cements, etc. And ideally, I used to have a big swing arm lamp, though now I have this lamp. I would prefer a lamp that's, you know, out of the way more. But I took those out of the way because of the videotape stuff. But here's the bench that I do most of the work. So, you know, I'm here. I have, you know, ignore the lighting, the cameras, the computer stuff. Normally this wouldn't be here. That's just all the YouTube video stuff. But other than the computers and whatnot, nothing else has changed. This has always been the way my desk has been. Right now, as we can see, I'm tying 1/16 and 1/32 marabou jigs, and this is for the steelhead farther up north, because we're getting towards the end of the summer. So in the fall, the steelhead will be running, and the lake trout, and that's what the guys are really looking to sell up there. But what do we have? A very unorganized way of just keeping bucktails. These are all bucktails that I've started using. So what I typically do as I'm tying, instead of putting a used tail back in my inventory bag, I keep it on my table until it's completely gone. So as the next time I tie something with this green chartreuse, I'll use up this tail, get out a fresh tail. As you can see, there's a couple that are similar, but the colors is slightly off. I was using one for one reason, one for another. I have bags of jigs that I've been tying this size and this color for quite some time. That bag's still on my desk. Behind the camera, you see underneath the shelf are just the plastic bags that I use, either to staple the jigs to cards, or the larger bags to put the full dozen in to put back in the inventory. This spinning rack is an old spinning rack from a Sugarman's store, which was an old, kind of like a J.C. Penney's or a Kmart type store, a department store. Dad picked up. I love this thing. It was his spinning rack for jigs. I think this used to have little like 2x2 cards that had earrings or something like that on it. But love that rack. On this painting table, so the other rack that you might have seen, but I use this primarily for painting. But again, this is an old spinning countertop display type rack that I think used to have had, necklaces or something on, and we've just used it for years and years for jigs. And then when things are getting really busy, I do have even a bigger rack. It's a circular rack, but again, from one of those old kind of 5 and dime type stores. So those spinning countertop racks from the 70s. Fantastic. Love using those. So coming back to the jig desk, this is my old tried and true Universal 2. I do keep my newer vise just for these jaws, mainly for the really big, larger hooks for the bass jigs that I've been tying recently, as well as the larger streamers. And like I said, I did not clean anything up. This is how it looks every day, all day. Initially, we talked about maybe doing this show and tell when I was cleaning the desk, when I was changing this mat. But this is what I'm talking about. This is a white cardstock that I just use a painter's tape. This helps reflect light up off the table, and I need it more and more. The older I get, the eyes, when it comes to small detail and reading, I have to use the cheaters. Little tricks of the trade, I guess. I have little nails on the side here. This was, of course, my dad's idea, since this was his desk originally, but you always have spools of thread and hooks, and so I do keep my 2-aughts all ready to go in bobbins, individual bobbins. I keep my size A just lined up. Again, tools in the corner, mostly just throw them in an old jelly jar, an old plastic cup, and if I don't touch these in a year, they get put away. So these are just tools and whatnot that have stayed on my desk forever. Here's an interesting thing, and I will show this in greater detail sometime. I started writing in this book early 2000, late 90s. Let's open it. Let me open it real quick. We're not going to do a big in-depth look at this, but I'll show you what I'm working on now. Okay, so we've talked about I'm doing marabou jigs, right? So as an example, this page here is just steelhead jigs. I list out the hook, maybe the molds that I'm using. So this is the do-it molds that I'm using. There's a note here because the 2 different do-it molds I have, the hook size is one off on one of them. So I just have a note here, and I've noted on the mold itself the hook sizes. Sometimes I do a little bit of an illustration, what the jig looks like here, about adding a stinger hook and how I would do that for this type of jig. And then I just list out the colors, the head color, the tail color, the body or the thread color, the body color, and if there's any flash, additional notes, etc. But I do that for everything. So in here, there's the walleye jigs. There's custom. When I come up with a custom pattern, something special, that goes in this book as well. The airheads and all the special recipes to paint those heads. So I find it valuable for me. I do still like to refer to it whenever, because you forget a step or you forget exactly how you did something. But again, here's another copy of Practical Fishing Knots. I keep it on my desk just in case. Kind of disregard the video stuff, but I keep on. This is Wapsi Flyhead Cement, and this is the last of the last that I can't buy this anymore. They no longer, I'm not a brick and mortar store, so I can no longer buy stuff from Wapsi at a discount. And this is the last of my Wapsi head cement. Regular lacquer, can go in here now. It's basically the same stuff. What else we got that's interesting on this table? A little bit hard to see underneath the computer, but you've all seen me tying on the stinger hooks. This is my 25-pound Berkeley Trilene. I actually have rod eyes on my table just to keep the line in order as I'm pulling it out. I actually have a measurement on my table from the edge of my vise to here. That's how I know every time. I can just snip that monofilament and snell my hook and then tie it onto the as a stinger. But just to make things quick and easy. So if you've seen me it during the regular videos tying jigs, and as I'm talking I'm always pointing to the right. It's because that fly tying table is to the to my right. But that's it. Very unglamorous, right? And like I've said, this setup was this way before I started doing YouTube videos. Some of those early ones were actually at another house. Early pictures. I know there's some pictures out that are, about 20 years ago. So that was at our first house. The kids and the family have gotten bigger. Since then, my wife and I, this is our second house. We've been here about 20 years. So this is it. I think it's fun to look at some of these things. I enjoy looking at other people's tying stations, their setup, how they display. We've seen, I did a video in the room that has all the molds and then all the boxes of my supplies and stuff. I know some guys like to do the pegboard thing and hang up their supplies, which is probably smarter than me, because I'll buy new material and then go through my boxes and realize, oh, I didn't have to spend so much money, right? But I do enjoy looking at other people's setup. I hope you've enjoyed this. I'm going to edit down just a little bit, of course, when I've changed around the microphone. But I don't want this to be a terribly long video. It's just show and tell to satisfy those people who've been asking for quite some time. I get asked a lot. I don't mind showing. I like showing, especially letting people know that this isn't, I don't have a factory anywhere. I don't have a great big fancy office. I'm just in the corner of the basement, right? And as you probably can tell, this room has not been remodeled since we've bought the house. The rest of the basement has a nice, very comfortable family room, TV room, whatever you want to call it. But this room, there's no reason for me to change it. The only thing I've changed is I've added the lights, added the video equipment. That just takes up more space in here, but I haven't changed anything. So I hope you enjoyed this quick show and tell. As always, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss any new content. Feel free to leave any questions, comments, good or bad. Let me know. Is there something you would have done different? I probably could get rid of one whole bench and just swap my vise back and forth, right? But this is a setup that's worked for me. Maybe sometime maybe we'll paint something at the my little spray booth. When we looked at that other rack, you might have gotten a quick peek at my messy painting table. But aside from storage, this is my only space. I do have that other room with all the storage and the molds. I do mess around with stuff out in the garage and have my workbench and man space out there, right? But this is it. If there's anything else you want to see, I'm always happy to share how it's done, how I do it. And like I said, there's no secret, guys. So until next time, keep tying in tight lines.